Welcome to this Liga technical video. In this video I will present to you the technical setup of our GlobalID product. The product, very briefly, what we do with Liga GlobalID is that we secure user accounts. You could look at the way as a user account as a kind of two sides of a coin. One side is that you make sure that you have multi-factor authentication and hopefully also passwordless authentication to make the access to the account very secure. But also we make sure that the account is validated, because it really doesn't make sense to have a very secure access to an account in which the account itself can be compromised easily by an administrator or by others, especially on fraudsters. So that's what we do with the Liga GlobalID. And let me introduce you to the fundamental thinking that we have in the product. Very basically, and the way the product is built, is that we have admin UIs. I will come back to the details on the admin UI. We have user UIs, which are the interface for the end users. We have worked very carefully to make that service also very easy for the users and very simplified in all the aspects of this actually quite complex environment. And finally, of course, there are backend systems, and these backend systems is delivered as a virtual appliance, and they can be deployed either on-premise or self-hosted, or they can be deployed in a cloud environment. That's all depending on your risk assessment and the way you want to have the delivery of the solution. So what does it mean to secure a user account? First of all, what we do is that we have lifecycle management. I think it's very easy, and many people understand that quite easily, that the way that lifecycle is that you need to create users. I will come into how we do and what we do in that area, but I think for many of you, you're aware, of course, it's quite easy. Someone new comes on board your company, get enrolled, everyone gets created, and then they can start working. The big issue on lifecycle is actually to get people when they leave the company, so deactivate the account or remove the account. That can be an issue, and that's what we build in and what we see to that can work very easily. Also, as just said, as part of this double side of an identity, you need to know who are the user, and that's what we're using, what we call EID identity check. I will get into what is behind that word and what we mean by electronic identities and national identities, etc. And then, as I said, multi-factor. Multi-factor is a mandatory requirement in many sectors, and we believe this will be mandatory on every single aspect of IT environment within the next many years. There's no discussion. Passwords are obsolete, they are vulnerable, and we need to move towards passwordless. And finally, what we also learned from specific customer cases and learned from the market is that event logging sounds something that is easy, but apparently it's not everyone that does that. So we make sure, and what we've done is that we have fundamental compliance reports, and we have the logging capacity capabilities to make sure that you get the logging information you need in your environment to meet the regulatory requirements and the compliance requirements that you have for running your IT environment. Finally, all the discussions on the EID. Also, I can recommend you to go to our Cooking or Coal report, where we have asked them to validate on the strategy on using EID as a trusted factor for trusted identities. You can go and you can find the link to the report straight on liga.com. So that's actually right now on the front page, and otherwise you would find that on the knowledge page of the website. Okay, so what is lifecycle management? Of course, it's all about the users. But it's also about that we have automatic user creation from connected external systems, including synchronizations of groups, password, and any other attributes. That's the fundamental thing. We get users into our system, and we can synchronize every single piece of data that comes with that user, independent from where the user data originally occurs. We can, of course, also do the same thing manually. We have an interface where you literally can go in and type in the information. Then we have automatic assignment of tasks to the user. as an example, the life cycle, we need to make sure that based on a given group membership, something special is going to happen. That's a built-in functionality, and we can even extend that further based on customer request. Secure password reset with either SMS or with eID verification. That's also a feature in the life cycle. Then we have, which is interesting for some, delayed account activation until required tasks are completed. The point here is that someone gonna begin on the first in the next month in your company. You set up the account. You don't want to have the account staying open with a default password until the user has entered and start the onboarding process, he or she in this case. So they need to go and run their eID validation or verification check, and then the accounts get activated. Also, automatic or manual account deactivation instantly or scheduled by an expiry date. More or less the reverse of the account activation. Of course, we can also deactivate the account, but we could also set end of the month, this person is leaving our company, and therefore we make sure that the account is deactivated at the appropriate time. And finally, also build in a life cycle for people that are using certificate in the infrastructure. We have also built in automatically or manual revocation of user certificates. So this was the life cycle. Going into the eID check. The eID check, basically we have a company network, we have a national eID, so we are using trust. So we submit some verification data to the national service and we get back some trust. And that trust we then start using in our own company. That's exactly the point in the validation. That's exactly also the point what KuppingerCole is touching in their report. So a few examples of the functions here. Verification of user identity utilizing the trust from external third-party eID providers. In Denmark, that's the national system like MitID and MID. In Sweden, could be BankID. In Germany, Personalausweis, etc. That all depends on the different countries. But also this can be a national eID, a private eID provider, or even a manual process. So we can actually also support that, say, okay, this person needs to show up there, into reception. There's a special security officer that is privileged to do this and to check that the person has, as an example, comes with the right passport. So there are many ways to conduct this eID check. But this account cannot go live or cannot go active until this task has completed. The identity verification process can combine multiple steps. So what we can do is that we can have eID verification, we can have an SMS text also to verify the ownership of a given phone. We can do multiple steps like a batch or a bundle of sequences. That's a function. Also, once the user identity is properly verified, this is logged on the user object. So we actually do register that the event happened. So that's a part of your compliance reporting also. So we know that on that given date, this user did the process that we asked, were asked and completed. And finally, we provide an API access for all the zero trust environments. So you can set up in a connected system, in IDP, you can set up and connect to GlobalID and ask every single time a user wants to authenticate. We can check that the user has the right identity assurance level. We can check that the assurance level of the given token that is being used are on the correct level. We can check for the account that is active and non-active, etc., etc. Given group memberships and other information that can be relevant in a zero trust process. And lastly, if you want to see what eIDs we actually do support, it's a very long list, so I will recommend you to go to liga.com/eIDs. That's where we store the information on all the various support forms we have built into the product. Going to the multi-factor secure access. I think you all know various ways to do multi-factor. I will just give you a brief introduction here to the various forms that we do support. Firstly, we secure a multi-factor token can be ordered for the user either automatically or as a part of the process manually from the portal UI. I will come to explain what portal UI is in a minute, or based upon a given group membership. So this is all built into an automation engine that can see to that the process runs in the flow that you want that flow to run. It's a fundamental part of the involvement also. But also when it comes to the daily use, I think this is also a very important part. What we do in the products that we support Open Smart Card, the GIDS applet, but we also support CryptoVision Smart Card middleware. We do, and I will just show you here in a second, we also support on request other middlewares. We do support remote smart card and soft keys in various ways. I think you will have to talk to us directly to get a more deep explanation to what kind of soft keys and remote smart card we do support. All smart cards form factors are supported, so we are not limited to only one kind of full-size card, or it can be USB keys, it can be TPM chip. There are many, there are quite a lot actually. We have another video where we describe what kind of cards and chips we do support, and you will get the link here on the presentation to those videos. For the support, we have built in native support for Active Directory's certificate authority certificates, and we also is able to provide these user multi-factor authentication data and make that accessible for any external IDP. As I said, we can support other middleware vendors, is supported on request. We can also support other external CAs. As an example, in Denmark we support a national infrastructure, but there are many other CAs in which this is relevant, so we can support that. We have planned FIDO2 token support here for upcoming in this year 2022. And also we have planned for support, external authentication support for other multi-factor authentication methods. Because there are many ways to do this. We have mentioned here Microsoft Authenticator. It can be eID. There can be multiple other systems that you want to use for passwordless or various ways for conducting your authentication. So look at GlobalID. We are not limited to only using the solution we provide or we suggest. We can easily also integrate to other multi-factor authentication systems. Event logging. You don't know anything if you're not logging anything. You don't know even if you were breached or in any other cybersecurity area. So event logging is a crucial thing, that you know that what happened at a given time, also to go back to analyze not just on security but also on general errors and debug, etc. But very important also for your compliance requirements. So we have full system logging of all user and client and application events. So everything that goes on that is connected to our system, we will provide logging for that. Specific events in this example, a user event, are also logged simultaneously to the corresponding database object. So on a user, and the example you have just down below here on the slide, that's example from the user log. So that information is kept in a tamper-proof way on the user. So we have actually two log files. We have a system log that is logged to a general log file, and we have this specific object log file that are made for the tamper-proof area. We also support from the general log. Obviously, we can feed data to any external log system, CM systems, for further reporting in depending on that system. We can also easily export user data, that's a PDF file, or we can easily export the event log of a given user or other objects based on a CSV file if you want to use that, provide that for some auditing or some reporting or some analytic process. And finally, we have made a number of predefined user data compliance reports. what users have been logged in for who did not log in for the last 30 days, users that did not pass the ID validation, users that has a multi-factor authentication device that is about to expire, etc., etc. Many of these kind of very fundamental reports are built in and are easy accessible for the purpose of make the compliance work as easy as possible. The basic components themselves, as I said initially, is built around a virtual appliance. On one part, we have also, as introduced you to, the browser, access the admin, the portal, and the user UI. We also have the client side for a desktop client and a kiosk client. We have a mobile, and we have REST API that can be used for further integration. On the more technical side, we have a logic engine that runs process, that runs rules, and we also sees to a lot of security monitoring and features for this area. Finally, we can provide integrations to Active Directory, to Azure, to Google, to REST, to SOAP, and also for JDBC for SQL databases. So our browser UIs, as I said, we have admin UI, and it is also very important to mention here is that all our UIs, browser-based, are responsive. So they're made in this modern framework. They can be used for mobile phones or tablets or PCs. They will automatically adjust to the given form factor of the screen. So admin UI, that's for GlobalID server administration. Portal UI is for GlobalID user and order administration. And what is an order administration? That can either be a process, user validation, or a device order, in this case a smart card assurance. And finally, the user UI, which are the end user self-service. So this is a user eID validation. It can be account activation, certificate revocation, or a password reset. So these are the things that the users normally would conduct in a self-service manner. Client applications, we have a desktop and kiosk application. This is made for the assurance of smart cards because that's a physical thing. You need to connect to hardware, you need card readers, you need the card, you need to make people nearby the card, so you need a proximity in this case to make that happen. So that's why we have a desktop client, or even if you want to have a special function, a kiosk solution for that purpose. And we also have a mobile app for smart card push authentication and using the NFC functionality of either iPhone or Android-based phone. Obviously, those devices need to have an NFC reader in the hardware. Going to the more kind of service application that comes with the product, we have a REST API, which is provides extensive access to all administrative methods. And so this means that you can actually build your own integration if that's something that is required, or it's something that you feel that this would make the solution even better. Also, we have built in a BPM management, and also there's a UI and a browser access to monitor what goes on in the BPM engine. If something is not working as expected, it's possible for you to go and debug, okay, where's the issue, what happened there, is an error. Many things can go wrong in these processes, and sometimes you need to go and have a more deep look into what causes this issue. That's a part of our solution. It's possible for you. It would not be something you do on a regular basis, but it's something that's very nice to know in a debug situation that's actually is available for finding errors. Obviously, we will always be available for you to support you on these things, but sometimes it can be practical that this is something you also is capable of having a look into this problem yourself. Also, the integration management, direct access to configuration of the event-based rule engine and connectors to external system. This is the engine that communicate with Active Directory, can communicate with other systems. Obviously, sometimes there also can be useful to go and say, okay, what happened there? Why doesn't it run? What is the problem? Where's the error? Those kind of things can be relevant. It could also be relevant for you to say, okay, I don't want to use the standard solution. I want to have some modifications. That's also possible. So you might have some other information you wanna inject into this process. You wanna adjust some rules. These things are possible. You can do that, or we can assist you in doing it. It's something that is supported in the product. And lastly, we also provide a tool for database management. So there's a direct access to the configuration of all database objects and the structure of the database. We're using a very, very scalable and strong database. I will get to the database also a few things what it can do, but it's a very strong tool. So we will get to this in a second. Actually, I think it comes here. So the BPM-based process engine. Process and device orders are controlled by well-defined workflows in the Camunda Business Process Management Engine. So we are using a standard framework for that. So it's built on industry standards of BPM processes, which means that every single process that goes into the system will be linked to these industry standard of how you do processes. Make sure that all the error handling, all those tasks that happens in a process is conducted in a secure and in an efficient manner. We also have a real-time event-based integration engine. So it's a rule-based synchronization of user data to and from connected external systems. Active Directory, Azure, Google, SQL, LDAP, REST, SOAP is all triggered immediately when a change occurs. It's very important for me to stress here that this is event-driven. So something changes, phone number change, immediately that information is passed. We are not using something that is synchronizing every 24 hours or every hour. No, we're using a real-time engine that has a very, very strong and very efficient queue management. So if the connection is not available, for maybe the connected system is not running, we will stack up that queue. We will be maintaining the queue. We can actually go in and monitor what happens in the queue, where is the data, and what will happen when the connected system then becomes online. How is the synchronization then reestablished? All of those are built in a very mature system that handles that. We also support multiple primary user stores and IDPs. In the example, you have an organization, you might have multiple Active Directories. We can bridge that into one meta directory and make sure that the data that needs to come from one AD can be actually transferred to another AD, but you do not have to merge all your ADs together. It can be different versions of Active Directory, or it can even be that you don't have all your users in Active Directory. You might have some users in a SQL database or an open source database, MariaDB, and you might have some users in an Active Directory. That all depends. We can merge all that into one meta directory, and from there you can manage all the security and all the lifecycle and user account security on all of your users, not limited to a single technology. Then the database engine, as said, it's cluster-enabled and highly scalable database that supports infinite numbers of objects. The cluster part is a native part. It's something you can set up. Obviously, in any case of clustering and this kind of scalable systems, it needs some technical skills, and you need to work with us or with and other similar consultants that can support this process. But this is also something you can do yourself if that's something you provide. That's all up to your how you want to conduct your own business. So we can support it, and the database is by default enabled for doing it. And I think that's a very strong thing, that you can have multiple sites, or you can run multiple systems, and you can still have a synchronized user database. Just a very brief introduction to the past and the future. I will not go too much into the history, but the history of our product goes back to 2015. It steps into 2019, and also here in 2021 we released the latest version, the 5.0. And now in the Q1, we're releasing our solution now for the eID services, and we release the password ID, and then comes mobile ID, Azure ID, and down the road multiple other products in the stack. So this is just to give you a very brief view into the history, but also a little bit about how we see moving forward. We are partnering with numbers of international companies. Mainly we are partnering with Micro Focus. We're also partnering with CryptoVision. We're partnering with Thales. We're partners with Signicat for the technology. And this is a long, many decade-long partnerships in which we will work with these companies in various ways of utilizing different kind of technology. Lastly, you can go to liga.com/globalid. That's our product page. You can go to liga.com/video. You can go to also, as I said, the liga.com/EIDs. And finally, you can find all the support information and documentation. Find that on liga.com/support. And I think with all of that, that's the technical walkthrough of our GlobalID product. I just want to say also for how we see Liga, and what we see is that we believe that everyone has a right to be safe. We also believe it's a part of our DNA that we work with that. We need to face that there's a cybersecurity threat out there. We need to make sure that the IT system is kept secure and continues to be secure and are built and being more resilient and robust against any kind of cyber threat. So it's a fundamental thing of what we do in Liga, is that we want to make sure that everyone has that right to be safe, and we try to provide the best we can do on getting good products and good solutions out there for you as a customer. So thank you for watching, and welcome back at a later time for another tech video.